Marvel Studios, the cash cow of Hollywood and the favorite adopted child of Disney, until recently. Although the MCU has fallen off in recent years, the Golden Decade, better known as the Infinity Saga, is still a massive achievement in pop culture and cinema. I thought we could take a step back and appreciate those golden times and rank their efforts. Two quick notes though. I am including the canon TV projects on this list, which sadly does not include the Netflix shows. And finally, this is my opinion. If you disagree with anything in here, let me know in the comments. On with the show.
No! God, please, no! No!
Bad effects, poor writing, no justice for the characters, pitiful attempts at humor. No, I'm not talking about the Multiverse Saga, I'm talking about Inhumans. This is entirely why I wanted to include the TV shows on this list, because Marvel wants us to forget all about this show and I cannot let that happen. It is bad, very bad, and definitely the worst thing that the MCU has ever put out. I'd put more effort into saying that, but I don't want to put more effort into it than Marvel did.
I'm Thor. You're Thor? Well, it hurts.
Y'all knew this would be showing up right away. This is the lowest Rotten Tomatoes scores on this list, I think, although certainly not of the MCU. Fun fact about this movie, Patty Jenkins was originally going to develop this movie, and when Marvel turned her down, she went on to direct Wonder Woman. This is also the project that got Natalie Portman to peace out of the MCU, until she was offered like $4 million to come back. Now admittedly, Thor is a difficult comic book character to write for, but this is not it, Chief. The next two slots are taken up by these two shows. I didn't finish either of them, and frankly, neither should you. Cloak and Dagger is if Marvel was a CW show, and Runaways is if Marvel was a young adult novel. I'm not really big into either genre, although in terms of CW, I do love the Arrowverse. Let me know if you want to see that ranking. But I can tell you from my limited time of watching it that some effort went into it. It didn't pay off, it wasn't very enjoyable to watch, but the effort was there, and I gotta give credit for it.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry.
I forgot all about this movie, so I had to rewatch it to make sure I wasn't missing anything important. I did forget about the whole drama of Ed Norton stealing the footage and recutting the film, but that story is already more interesting than this entire movie. The most YouTube seen is the post-credits where Tony Stark shows up, and I think that kind of says it all. There's quite a few MCU projects that just exist to set up another one, and I feel like this is the first time the MCU did that, and I think it's kind of a shame because they miss out on telling some potentially interesting stories. Hulk is never supposed to be forgettable, and his later appearances would prove that, until he became forgettable again. Man, Big Green just can't catch a break.
I have successfully privatized world peace.
The memes are strong with this one, but not in a good way. This was the first sequel to an MCU film, and I don't think it landed with anybody. Rhodes gets a new actor and a new suit, which is cool. Also, even though he's not represented well in the film, I really do like Whiplash as a villain. There's just something simple and fun about a villain who just whips lightning at people. But sorry, different bad movie. Of course, this was the phase 1 of the MCU, where expectations were low, so was it really a disappointment? I don't know, still a dumb movie though.
I'm not what you think I am.
How much you want to bet that all the angry comments are directed towards this movie in some way? I don't know what gets people so riled up about Captain Marvel, because to me, it's just boring and uneventful. This came out between Infinity War and Endgame, and I can't be the only person who expected some insight into how Endgame was gonna play out. Instead, we get a generic superhero movie that, upon rewatching, absolutely baffles me that it made $1.3 billion at the box office. Captain Marvel is another character that's difficult to write for, but I feel like they really handicapped themselves here. There's some hand-wavy writing going on that's like, oh, Captain has been brainwashed and can't show emotions and has amnesia, all of which is lazy writing, if I'm being honest, but more importantly, doesn't really give a chance for a character to be interesting, even if Brie Larson did try. But then again, if her assignment was to portray a character with the personality of a broccoli, then mission accomplished, I guess.
I just wanted to be like you.
And I wanted you to be better.
This one hits me like a really eggy fart. I was looking forward to this movie so badly. Sequel to Homecoming, taking place right after Endgame. Show me something interesting. No? Well, alright then. This was the movie that made me realize that Spider-Man wasn't gonna evolve much throughout his stay in the MCU. This was his 5th appearance, and he's still just this timid, pop culture humor referencing bot that someone in their 40s thinks young people are like. And Tom Holland is trying his best, and Zendaya is fun as MJ, but gosh, they really tried to make us believe that Mysterio wasn't the villain when it's so ass-wipingly obvious that he is. He's one of Spider-Man's most famous villains, no less, so I don't know how they thought they were gonna pull that off. Credit where credit is due though, the ending is pretty fun.
Hold on, you gave her wings?
Another one released between Infinity War and Endgame, and this one had some good ideas but could not overcome a repetitive formulaic plot. Ant-Man, cool. Wasp, cool. FBI agent, cool. Old people, cool. Villain, cool. So why the heck isn't this movie cool? Well, one thing for me is that the characters' bonds have been pretty much reworked. Ant-Man, Wasp, and Hank Pym are in very different places from the first movie, but not because of the first movie. This isn't a problem exclusive to this movie, but when characters experience critical changes outside of their own movies, it creates a weird disconnect when they're in their own movie again. It all feels so disjointed and broken that I just have a hard time caring about these cool characters. Most of them get snapped at the end of the movie anyways, and I should have been like, oh, I miss you, but instead I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were gone. This one surprised me, and is the other reason that I included the TV projects on this list. I'd never seen Agent Carter before making this video, and honestly I walked away pleasantly surprised. Its atmosphere and set design are really what sells it here, but I feel like the stories lacked any real punch, if you know what I mean. I choose to think of this show as practice for Haley Atwell to be in a much better espionage franchise.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
I actually didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy the first time I saw it, and then I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I was like, oh, I don't remember the first one being that bad. And then I rewatched it and, well, you'll see where the first one makes it on this list. But Volume 2, just no. This is another movie that exists purely for setup. And look, I get it. They needed to add more members to the Guardians of the Galaxy crew to prepare for Infinity War. It worked in Infinity War, but could you have done it in a more entertaining way for this movie? I feel like James Gunn's hands were tied when coming up with the plot for this one, because even though his style is present, the spark isn't, you know what I mean? Honestly, I'm not even sure if Disney liked this movie because they tried to cancel the man not long after this movie came out. Or maybe that's just Disney being Disney. Who knows?
You know, for a crazy homeless person, he's pretty cut.
The Thor movies are really hard to rank because they're all so different. Whereas Dark World feels like someone rushed the homework an hour before it was due, Thor, I feel like it didn't even get the right assignment. Every character is boiled down into a blockbuster bland version of their comic book selves. The plot is very basic, very predictable, and yet I walk away enjoying this one for one specific reason. Thor goes through a very specific character growth here. He goes from a strong but careless and selfish asshole to a strong and noble hero who understands the weight of his actions. This is just me, I know, but I really love that very specific type of character growth. But it doesn't get Thor very far because there's a much better asshole redemption story on this list.
I could do this all day.
I think it's fun to compare trilogies in the MCU, and personally, the Captain America trilogy is my favorite one. Sure, the first one doesn't quite make the top 10, but it wasn't bad, it was just kind of It gives off an early 2000s vibe. If this came out between X-Men and the Ben Affleck Daredevil, I feel like it'd fit right in. I think Chris Evans would agree that all the therapy before taking on this role was worth it, because the dude kills it. Charming, if naive, this Captain America is one that I want to see succeed in his fight against Skeletor. Look, I get it. Red Skull is supposed to be just this awesome villain in the comics, supposed to be Captain America's quintessential villain, but I can't take this dude seriously in this movie. Hugo Weaving does a good job and all, but he just doesn't feel very threatening. This spooky, scary skeleton, if this thing popped into my nightmares, I'd say, this isn't a nightmare. There is a supporting cast to this movie, including Haley Atwell and Tommy Lee Jones, but they're just like the movie, where it's all just sort of
I ruined the moment, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
I think we're firmly in the okay territory of this ranking. I saw Ant-Man in the theaters with one of my best friends, and it genuinely got a laugh out of me. They used the size-changing gimmick to its fullest, both for its action and for the lulz. Although Giant Thomas the Tank Engine is still terrifying, and no one will change my mind about that. Like Thor the Dark World though, this movie will always have a what could have been angle in my mind. This movie was originally going to be directed by Edgar Wright. If you don't know him, think Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Baby Driver. He's one of my favorite directors working today. And there's always going to be the part of me that's like, what if Edgar Wright got his hands on this plot and these characters? How amazing would it have been? Well, we'll never know, but for the record, Peyton Reed, I think he does a great job.
Get this man a shield.
The longest running MCU show to this day and probably forever. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. offered something that I feel is very unique and deserves more recognition for. The idea of a flagship show that ties in every part of the MCU, where an episode is released every week. It's just wonderful, and I really wish Marvel would have stuck with it longer. Now, to be clear, the idea wasn't perfectly executed. I think the show lacked focus, given the behind-the-scenes drama at Marvel TV and just how much had to be incorporated into the show. There's a lot going on, and not all of it lands, but plenty of it does the job just fine.
This doesn't make any sense.
Nah, nothing makes sense here, man.
This one is gonna make people angry. How can you put Thor Ragnarok outside of your top 5, you uncultured swine? Well, very easily, watch me. To be clear, I think it is the best Thor movie, but I think that comes from it having the fewest problems. A good Thor story should strike a weird Goldilocks zone of sci-fi, but also fantasy, and drama, and comedy. I do think that the new director, Taika Waititi strikes a great Goldilocks zone with this movie, but my issues come from the execution. I feel like most of what works in Thor Ragnarok is from it trying to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, but if I want to watch Guardians of the Galaxy, I'll watch Guardians of the Galaxy. And when I watch Thor, I want to see Thor. That's a very strange sentence. In fact, it was with this movie that I first heard the term Marvel humor being thrown around, and yeah, Marvel's humor did not evolve much past this point. For now though, Tickle Rafiki should be credited for making the best Thor movie. And also the worst one.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good, but it's taken.
This movie caused a rift between myself and my screenwriting mentor. I criticized Doctor Strange for its machine-like, minute-by-minute template for telling a story. She showed me a book called Save the Cat and explained to me that this structure is what makes it a clean and effective story. I'll let the YouTube comments decide which of us is right, but I am not budging on this movie. This movie is on the higher end of fine purely because of the actors and the visuals. But the story is so wasteful of these strengths that it just brings the experience down for me. I like these characters, but kinda similar to the Ant-Man and the Wasp problem, they're all better in other movies that aren't this one. So why even bother?
No strings on me.
The worst Avengers movie is not bad, but it's pretty uneventful compared to what came before it and certainly to what came after it. This one feels more like a victory lap, one that goes through a lot of the same motions but slower, less exciting, and more tragic. Kind of like Joss Whedon's career. This one got pushed a bit higher on the list because it's where we get introduced to Scarlet Witch and Vision. They're some of my personal favorites out of the entire MCU, and so that carries a lot of weight for me. They did Quicksilver absolutely dirty though.
You didn't see that coming.
Nope, I certainly did not. No, that's not a typo. I really do have Iron Man 3 this high. This is not a great movie. I'd be the first to admit that, but I really enjoy watching it. It answers one simple question: what is Tony Stark without his suit and without his tech? And the answer: he's Iron Man. It throws the invincible Iron Man into a situation where he can't rely on his money and his tech to win his battles. The result is some of Robert Downey Jr.'s best scenes in the entire saga, in my opinion. He has to rely on his wit, his ingenuity, and his ability to throw a plan together that will mostly get the job done, all while dealing with pretty severe PTSD from the first Avengers movie. This just makes him so much more interesting to watch. And sure, the villain is crap and is fixed in a much better movie. Sure, not much happens from an MCU perspective, but darn it, I just enjoy watching this movie. At the very least, we got a really cool Iron Man theme song out of it.
What's up? I am not dead!
Here's another one that'll piss people off. Does not having Black Panther in my top 2 make me racist? Shame to be canceled before getting monetized on YouTube. Relax. This is a very good movie. The production design, I like the music, and oh my god, Michael B. Jordan. This man outshines nearly everyone in the entire movie. I haven't gone too much depth about this so far, but the MCU, not exactly known for its stellar villains. It really just has a few that are really good. Most MCU villains, you're lucky to remember their name afterwards, but Killmonger stands out more than the king himself, I feel. This is obviously nothing against late great Chadwick Boseman, who gives it 1,000,000% in this role, but in this movie, Black Panther is not written to be the main driver of this story. Everything happens because of Killmonger's actions. Black Panther here, he's just reacting to what Killmonger is doing, really. My very first exposure to Black Panther was in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. In that show, Black Panther was both a fierce warrior and a regal king, and I bought every second of it. And this movie just doesn't have that same gravitas to the character. But I'm not too worried because when Black Panther first shows up, he absolutely does.
How long do you think you can keep your friends safe from me?
See this right here? This is what Black Panther should be. Look at this dude. He steals almost every scene that he's in. And to be honest, that extends to a lot of the cast of Captain America Civil War. This movie came out a few months after Batman vs. Superman, and I think Civil War succeeded in every way that movie failed. The conflict? Genuine. The fights? Fantastic. The stakes are high, and the consequences are felt for a long time. This takes a lot of the political intrigue of Winter Soldier and incorporates it more into a traditional action-adventure type of superhero movie. And I think it all meshes together really well. You can really understand why after making this movie, the Russo brothers got to direct the next 2 Avengers movies. This is also where Tom Holland's Spider-Man debuts. Even though he can be a bit much at times, I think 99% of the time he strikes the perfect balance. It was at least enough for me to get excited about his solo movie. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. So let's talk about it. There's good, there's great, then there's amazing, or spectacular. What I'm trying to say is that Spider-Man Homecoming is one of my favorite movies. Between the writing and Tom Holland's performance, I feel this movie strikes that perfect balance that it needs to be to give the character real depth and real empathy. Strong, but vulnerable. He's growing up fast, but he's still young. He's naive, but he is not stupid. And even though he's often scared, he's always courageous. He feels like a young man who wants so badly to do the right thing, but struggles to live a happy life while doing so. That is Spider-Man. And who's the villain? It's Michael Keaton. But not just Michael Keaton, it's the father of his date to his homecoming dance. Such a brilliant twist. If you can't tell, I really like this movie. Sacrilegious, I know, to have the first Iron Man movie outside of my top 5, but it's only just outside. This is the one that started it all. This is the reason the MCU blew up the way it did. It hit the world in 2008, the same year as The Dark Knight. And while I think TDK is the better movie, I think it's safe to say that Iron Man has had the most impact. I'm just gonna go ahead and state the obvious here. Freaking Robert Downey Jr. He went from an actor who nobody thought would make the comeback that he wanted to make to the highest paid actor in Hollywood for multiple years. And I think the man deserves it because his performance in here is just so perfect. Now, this was also before the MCU was the most profitable franchise in history when every movie was made
with a box of scraps!
When I rewatched this movie, I was like, it is a rough around some edges, but I actually prefer that. I'd rather have something that's a little rough but endearing than something that's incredibly polished and bland as a result. It gives the movie a very natural vibe, one that set out to just entertain us from beginning to end, rather than entertain us just enough so that we'd watch the sequel, or the spin-off, or a movie that features another one of the characters. In that sense, it's a simple movie, but an effective one. One that started the greatest cinematic run in the history of cinema. Oh, this movie has aged like fine wine. Kicking off my top 5 is a movie I enjoy more with every rewatch. The Guardians movies are very much beloved by MCU fans, and it started here. It's hard to see it in retrospect, but this movie was a tremendous risk for the MCU. It was already riding high and doing extremely successfully, and they decide to make their next movie on characters that nobody has really heard of before. And who's gonna direct it? The dude who made the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. It doesn't seem like a formula for instant success, but in the end, it worked. It worked really well, and it stands tall as one of the best movies that the MCU has to offer. And Marvel knew it too, because like I said earlier in this list, they've tried to copy and emulate the energy that Guardians gives off in multiple sequential films. The offbeat humor, the flamboyant color palettes. Many MCUs tried to emulate these aspects, but none, and I mean none of them, pulled it off quite like Guardians of the Galaxy.
That up there, that's the endgame.
The true finale of the Infinity Saga. This is the biggest movie ever, and sorry James Cameron, but it's probably gonna stay that way. So how can it be outside the top 3? Well, I'll tell you, this movie is basically cut into 3 parts. The first part is an extended ending for Infinity War. The third part is one of cinema's finest spectacles. But the middle part is kind of like this extended time-traveling tribute to the previous 10 years of the MCU. Now don't get me wrong, this tribute is earned, like it's not too self-congratulatory, but damn does it take its time. I saw this movie 3 times in the theater, and all 3 times I took a bathroom break in this section and missed absolutely nothing. Again, this doesn't make it a bad movie, it's a great movie, but the last 3 movies on this list, they compelled me from start to finish.
There has never been another Steve Rogers, has there?
I think Winter Soldier is actually my favorite movie out of the MCU. I like how it can stand independently as a movie. It connects to the MCU and is part of the MCU, but it doesn't depend on the MCU. It just sets out to be a political thriller with an MCU aesthetic, and it works marvelously. This is where Chris Evans proved once and for all that he is a fantastic Captain America, and equally so where Scarlett Johansson proved that she could play the real Black Widow. Nothing against those previous movies, but they were made to be superhero movies. Both Cap and Black Widow, they really feel at home in a spy, espionage, thriller type of world, and this movie gives them a perfect playground to be just that. I could go on about this movie, so I'll just rattle off a few other of my favorite aspects. Anthony Mackie as Falcon, fantastic. Bucky's return as the Winter Soldier, incredible. Robert Redford playing a very menacing political bad guy, awesome. Samuel L. Jackson's best performance as Nick Fury, yes, that is a hill I am willing to die on. Whew. Okay, we're almost done. Time for the final 2.
If we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn well sure we'll avenge it.
Iron Man may have started the MCU, but the first Avengers movie kicked off the Infinity Saga. I'd say out of all the movies on this list that this is perfect blockbuster popcorn entertainment. You've already noticed that I like it when movies incorporate the MCU but don't depend on it. This is one of the reasons why. You don't need to have seen Iron Man or Captain America or Thor or Hulk, definitely not Hulk, to understand what is going on in this movie. It's something that I wish the MCU stuck with, because keeping up with the projects these days, it almost does feel like homework. It sets out with a seemingly simple premise that naturally spreads out into something spectacular, and it produced the only widely recognizable musical motif in the MCU. I don't talk too much about the music of these movies, and that's because there isn't much to say. But you already know what the most iconic musical motif is. I'll just play one note of it right now. And just like that, the rest of it is playing in your head. You're welcome. I've gone back and forth multiple times on which of these movies should be number 1, but I ultimately settled on...
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Avengers Infinity War. Whereas Endgame spent a lot of time being a tribute, Infinity War gets right to the point. And what is that point, you might ask? It's that the Avengers are completely outmatched. A lot of superhero movies, not just the MCU, have a problem with feeling like there's real stakes. It's like, oh, how many times can a villain threaten to blow up the world? This movie right here proves that you can still have like galaxy level stakes, but it feels like it matters. Part of that comes from Thanos. He's been built up as the big bad for a while now, and honestly, he kinda feels like a hero in this movie. I mean, he seriously gives off protagonist energy. I can't be the only person who feels that. Like, I get it, he wants mass genocide and cutting resources or whatever, but honestly, if he took a look at Twitter/X/ whatever Elon calls it next, I wouldn't really blame him. The Avengers dropped the ball at several points along the way because they're characters with flaws and weak spots, and Thanos hits all the right ones to ensure his victory while still feeling like a flawed and deeply troubled character himself. And every step of the way, I was hooked. From Destiny Arrives All the Same to You Should Have Gone for the Head, I think that Avengers Infinity War is the best movie that Marvel has to offer. Well, there you have it, folks. I'm genuinely surprised my voice has held out for this long. The script for this video has been in my brain for so long that I just want to turn it into a video, get it out there, get it out of my head. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed. Like and subscribe for more. I'll see you next time. Take care.